Black lives matter.
Thank you for asking me to do this.
Thank you.
I really
Thank
appreciate
you for doing it, actually. Do you think that Black Lives Matter is taken seriously enough in society as a whole?
I don't think it's taken seriously enough. And I say that because in my common circles, when we have a conversation about Black Lives Matter, a lot of times people come back with all lives matter.
Yeah.
And all lives do matter.
Yes.
But all lives are not being seen at the same perspective, dealt with in the same way. So when they come back with, yeah, all lives matter, that means you don't get it.
Yeah.
Or you don't get what I'm saying to
yeah.
you. And
It's not. It's like you're avoiding the whole Black Lives Matter
Right.
movement, and it's just like all lives matter. It's like trying to avoid the topic of discussion.
Exactly, and that's why I think, and it's kind of like a defensive answer,
Yeah.
as opposed to thinking about it at the level
Yeah.
at
That
which it needs to be
That
engaged
actually is. Yes.
to make a difference.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, and then, do you feel that black on black violence has? What impact does black on black violence have for the Black Lives Matter movement? I guess would be a way to word the question.
Wow, that's an excellent question. I think black on black crime to me is very, very sad. It reminds me of a situation where hurt people hurt
Each other.
and when you have hurt and don't know where to place it, it's called displaced hurt.
Yeah.
And I think we hurt he
Almost
or she.
turning sadness to anger.
Yeah, and we often hurt he or she who is closest to us.
Yeah.
You've heard the saying that we often hurt the one who we love the most.
Yes.
It's kind of that way with black on black crime. It is displaced anger. It's I can't get to whom I need to direct it at or toward, but I direct that anger toward who's closest to me, and that is your brother
Fair
and
enough.
sister. Yeah, that's in your own neighborhood, in your own situation, and that's what it's like to me. It's taking your frustration out on the nearest person to you, and that's how I interpret black on black crime.
And then this takes us into animosity
Yeah.
among in the black community.
Exactly. And it's kind of like a fulfilling prophecy, you know. It's like once it begins, it becomes a cycle.
Yeah.
And you're watched in your anger, you're received in that anger, and you're defined by that anger. When that anger is a result of something.
Yeah.
And people look at the actions themselves in isolation as opposed to looking at the cause of the action. And looking at a cause of an action means that I got to take some time to think about it, or better still, I need to ask you a question. Because even at school, when children act out, they're not acting out just to act out.
Yeah, they're acting out. There's a deeper
reason
Yeah.
why people come to school angry. And you look at a child that's arguing back at a teacher, rather than just isolating that behavior in itself, look at the reason why that child is acting out. There's a reason. And when we start getting those type attitudes about behavior and interacting with each other, I think that will be the beginning of the beginning. Let me look a little deeper. It takes care and time and consideration for me to say, what's wrong today? What's going on with you? What's up? You're not yourself. Or if that's yourself, why are you so angry? And then allow that person to speak, and then listen when they talk.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then last would be police brutality and discrimination. How do you feel about being a black woman? How do you feel like growing up when you did or whatever? How do you feel discrimination affects for the people that don't know that just don't know growing up?
You know, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of being a black mother, I have a black son. And how do you raise a black son in an environment of police brutality? We got two things going on there. We got a police brutality that is a result of something, a systemic broken system, broken stereotypes, where we perceive and conceive each other in a negative, scary way. The scary black, therefore I feel a need to fight back when there's really no reason to fight
Yes.
in the first place. So when I'm perceived, or my son is perceived as a scary black individual, as a mom, I feel fearful that I've got to raise him to be in a certain way. That's different. When you see police coming, you need to make sure, son, that your hands are seen, that your face is facing, and that you obey and do what they say. Because what I see on the news is we still can do everything right and we get shot. We can say yes sir, no sir, and we get shot. We can run away unarmed and we still get shot.
Yes, ma'am.
So it is scary as a mom to raise a black son in an environment of police brutality.
Yes, ma'am.
At the same time, we cannot live in fear. You can't let fear control you, and it's difficult. So I have to teach my son courage in a way that's respectful. And that's difficult to do in this environment. So what you're doing today is a part of that solution, making people aware, looking to what causes this fear. Why do you fear us when we don't have the power or the authority or the decision making? So what is this about? So it's a deeper issue that we have to deal with right now. So I'm so glad that you asked these questions, because it starts with you and me having a conversation. Then you'll talk to your friends, and I'll talk to my friends. And thankful goes to the teacher that had you do this project, because this is what we need, awareness.
Yes, ma'am. That's it, I guess.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
this
you.
This is great.
That was like really good content.
This is really good. You're good. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. That was really good.
Black
Lives
matter.
All right, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Can you tell us your name?
Coach Johnson, Assistant Athletic Director here in BST TA here at Heritage High School.
And your age?
I am 47 years old.
Okay, so I have a couple questions here for you today about the Black Lives Matter movement. Do you feel that some people don't take Black Lives Matter serious enough?
I would agree with that. I don't believe everyone looks at it the same way. I don't believe that people look at it that way. It's like people feel that when you say Black Lives Matter, that you're trying to put actually a certain race above the other ones. But what I actually believe is everyone's trying to get, when they say Black Lives Matter, which I think all lives, they're just trying to get to be where they're equal with the rest of the races. That's all it's about.
Yeah. And how do you feel black on black violence impacts the Black Lives Matter movement?
Oh, it's embarrassing, and it actually degrades what their purpose is, because they look at the black on black crime or violence against each other, and then they start comparing that to the people that's trying to make a positive change, a positive gesture, positive movement. And I think it actually gives a negative outlook on the race itself.
Yeah. Okay, and then that brings us to animosity within the black community.
That goes back with the black on black violence.
Yeah.
Animosity. Why? I'm walking down the street. Why do you look at me in a certain way, or because you're feeling some kind of way, you stick your chest out just to make a point or a gesture, instead of looking at the totality of everything going on in the world. They don't look at the overall picture, and a lot of people don't see everything else. They can't see past their own lives. They don't see the future. They just see, I'm just living day to day. And this is an opportunity. You're an opportunity, and just because you live in my neighborhood or something like that, or I see I can jack you or something like that.
You got a little bit more than me, and I want that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I agree.
And then this brings us into the last topic of like discrimination. How you feel like you were discriminated upon, and again with like police brutality.
And I think that part, it's tough, and I've seen both sides of the spectrum. Growing up, yes, you stereotype. Growing up, you looked at a certain way because of the color of your skin. I was a professional athlete, for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
My rookie year, I have all the correct tags, insurance, all this stuff. I'm driving in a Lexus.
Still getting pulled over.
And I'm getting pulled over while I'm in a vehicle, and because I grew up in that lifehood, I'm pulled over, nervous, like I didn't even do anything. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm about to get pulled.
You're still nervous.
Exactly. You know, or here it is, I'm blessed and well off because of my career. I'm not hurting for, finances, But
Yes,
I
sir.
go in the store today, and people still look at me.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a perfect example last night. My wife and I, we decided we want to eat Ruth Chris, our favorite restaurant. We decided to order to go.
Mm-hmm.
I go in there to pick up the order, and I'm sitting there by the bar, and there was a white gentleman. He has 2 cell phones sitting right there. He's eating his food. I'm literally just leaning against the wall, waiting on the waiter to bring my order.
Yeah.
And he was real casual about it, but because I took it as seeing a black guy with 2. He kind of picked his phone up like he was looking at him, and then he picked him up to look at him like he's really looking at both his phones, and then set him on the right side.
Yeah.
I just shook my head like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to steal your phones. I'm not thinking nothing about your phone. But that's what I get when I walk in the store.
Yeah.
To this day,
You still feel that even though.
yeah, they're staring at you like I'm gonna steal the phone. I'm like, I'll buy the store. And so,
Exactly,
but I get treated that way because
Yeah.
I'm a black guy, and they feel big black guy make it
Yeah.
worse.
I didn't want to like take into consideration of like, because I know like you're a professional athlete.
Right.
You have like a good financial statement or whatnot, and like
But
how do you feel like do you feel coming from like how was your growing up?
Oh,
situation?
poverty. I was.
And so
yeah.
you came from basically
Yes,
the hood.
nothing. Oh yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
absolutely. Oh, I did grow up in.
Where'd you grow up at?
In California, Southern California kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you came from the hood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The legitimate. Yes.
And you're 47, so what, like the 80s?
Yes.
So like
no, it was
the
80s.
crack era.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I was born in '72, but when the crack era really hit, I mean, I'm not ashamed of it. It's public news. My mom was addicted to crack. I had to grow up faster, and
You had to adapt.
I had to adapt, and I had to raise. My little sister was
Yeah.
only a year younger than me. And I'm going to school. Today. When I see everything going on, I can relate because I feel I can relate to every single aspect for the most part of the different students at the school.
Yeah.
I've been there with nothing. I've been there, I have money. I've been there with absolutely, I didn't know I was gonna lay my head.
Yeah.
Happened to be my escape was I did 3 sports in school,
Mhm.
so I had those brothers. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
everybody on the team. That's that's your family. So I at least had something that got me away from all that foolishness. As soon as school got out, I had to go back into the real world and had to see what am I gonna eat for dinner and had to do all
Yeah.
that stuff. And then I wake up the next morning. It was a blessing to go to school because it got me away from the real life.
Yeah.
I did this, I got friends, I got people, teammates, coaches, and then when I left school, back to the real life. You know what I'm saying? So that was real, and I understand that and I can relate to that. So I'm real sensitive and, and passionate when I see, people going through stuff because I've been there and I know what it's like. That's why every single year I have this thing that I do. I don't know who it is, and it doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your sex
Yeah.
or anything in your background. I try to reach out to help someone because I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, did I make a difference in someone's
Yeah.
life? Because then I feel like my need or my being on campus was worth it.
I mean, I definitely have heard about you before I even came to school.
Like, I mean, there's still,
From my older brothers
Right,
and
right.
such,
So I
yeah.
just literally try to be there, for people,
Yeah.
because I know there was someone there for me, like a coach, which
Yeah.
I was athlete.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was a coach,
That's
which
what
was
you are to the
right.
Yeah.
So and I'm there. I love just reaching out and speaking to everybody because you know what? A lot of times you don't even know. You just saying hey to somebody. I don't know what that person is going through at home. I really don't.
Exactly.
I don't know I don't know if they're eating. I don't know what they're laying their head. I don't know if they can be being abused. I don't know. I really don't know. But me just saying what's up identifies that individual like someone cares and someone's there.
Yeah,
It's just a
it's
simple
an
gesture.
incentive, yeah.
Yes, it's a simple gesture that you're taking time out to acknowledge somebody.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Just being, it really does. So that's the way I always look at it, and that's the way I roll.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we could keep on recording, but that
Black
Lives.
matter.
why don't some people take Black Lives Matter more serious?
I think some people are completely unaware. I think that people sometimes are so focused on their own lives and their own existence and their everyday activities that they really don't think that it's an issue. So I do think some people live in unawareness. I think that there are some people who just don't understand the severity of the issues with Black Lives Matter, because until you are really aware of the situation, or when you're reading the news or you're watching the media and you see that this is a continual pattern of behavior with certain people, where people of color are being discriminated against and harassed and killed, then it really doesn't click on in your brain that Black Lives Matter is a big deal. You know, because if you're in the group where, you know, if you're in the majority group, or let's say that you're a white male, then it's not going to register with you in the same way it would as if you were a person of color. And so that's just, it's a lack of awareness, and it's just like, well, that's not my life, it doesn't really pertain to me, and it doesn't matter. So I mean, some people just don't care, and some people just don't get it.
How does black on black violence affect Black Lives Matter movement?
I think that when you look at black on black violence, it gives people an excuse to react in stereotypical ways, because they're like, oh, well, you know, look at the black community and look at the violence in the black community, but, you know, let's look at the media and let's look at mass shooters. You know, mass shooters are white males. Okay, so you can take and you can twist the narrative in any direction you want to twist it. But when you look at black on black violence, is it an issue? Yes, but there are many other things that are issue. I mean, there are people taking the narrative and twisting it to whatever they want it to be to make their point. You know, it's like taking Bible verses out of context to prove your point. You know, it's a very similar thing. So I mean, I think that yes, you have violence, but taking things out of context situationally will never help prove your point, because it's just really sort of nonsense, to be honest with you.
This ties in with animosity within the black community, and how do you feel that affects?
I think within any community you're going to have animosity, because it's like you spend too much time with anybody. Like, you have brothers. Your brothers get on your nerves, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have a brother, he gets on my nerves. I mean, but that's like any family you look at. You spend enough time with somebody, they're bound to get on your nerves. So there's going to be, you know, stress, and you'll have breakdowns in communication, and you'll be angry sometimes, and you'll shout at people. But I think that when you are in the dynamics of living, like in the Black Lives Matter movement, like I lived in inner city Baltimore for a number of years, and I know firsthand from living there what conditions are like, where you have generations of people living in poverty who are angry. And when you're looking at generations of people living in poverty who have this anger, and the police are against them, and there's all this stereotyping and this bias and negative media coverage, you know, you're going to be angry. You know, so within your community, you're going to have these feelings of frustration where you're stuck in the system that you can't really get out of. And I think that that's part of the cause of this issue, where yes, you're going to have animosity from, you know, being in a contained space for too long. Like, if you're living in a neighborhood and you've always been there and you can't get out, that's going to be frustrating, because you see people who have it better and you want a better life for yourself.
Fair enough, I feel. And then this will bring us into our last topic of police brutality and discrimination.
Where to start on this one? I'm so frustrated with the police. I mean, I think when you're looking at Black Lives Matter, and then you have people on the flip side of the coin who are like Blue Lives Matter. You know, I read something really great recently where it's like, when you look at Black Lives Matter, at the end of the day, if you're a person of color, you can't take off your skin. Like, you are who you are that person. When you're a police officer and you have a blue life, at the end of the day, you go home and you take off your uniform. Like, your existence is really different from somebody who's in the minority, who's discriminated against. You know, you look at, there's a thing on Twitter right now with my white privilege, like with the Twitter handle, and it's talking about people who are in situations who have gotten out of being charged for things, who could have been killed if they were a person of color in situations, because they're examining how their privilege has allowed them to escape from these things. And so I think with police brutality, you know, there should be more severe punishments, because you read about cases with police who have gotten away with these heinous crimes and they get a slap on the wrist. You know, because everybody's life matters. You know, but you do see a bias in the way that some officers, and not all officers, because, you know, you can't ever generalize and say like all cops are bad, you know, because it never is that way. But the police officers who are guilty of brutality should definitely have more severe punishments, because you need to send a message to people that all of them matter and that everybody should be treated equally. So it is very frustrating because our system is broken.
Yeah.
You know, but we need to revisit, you know, ways to look at how police are dealt with. You know, and we need to look at the justice system, because how can you shoot somebody multiple times
And get away with it.
and get away with it?
I feel you.
Mhm.
Well, that basically concludes the interview.
All right, awesome, thank you.
Thank you. That was good.